We've played some amazing games over the years. However, sometimes it's better when memories remain memories. The reboots on this list all failed to capture the spirit of the original game and completely disappointed us. Get ready for 10 reboots that were worse than the original. The 2013 city-building game Simcity was one huge disappointment.
Complete and utter disaster.
It did not offer the depth players were expecting, and on top of that, the game needed to be always online. The multiplayer aspect of Simcity wasn't interesting at all and pretty complicated.
Now you can connect to a larger dynamic world.
Ich spiele mit den Markten.
The scope of the cities was also just too limited, and it didn't take long before players lost interest. The crown of city-building simulators has since been taken over by Cities Skylines. When a reboot actually manages to lose its top position in the genre, it definitely deserves a spot on our list.
Now you know how to deal with disasters. Best of luck building, as you never know which disaster will strike next. Cheerio!
Bionic Commando is a reboot of the 1988 NES classic with the same name. This action-adventure was not so much a disappointment in its gameplay, but more in its design and story. Nathan Spencer is a ridiculous character with his dreadlocks, and the story of the game is simply bizarre. Spencer's wife is part of his bionic arm. Yes, his wife is built into his arm.
Emily.
I never left, Nathan. It's you who's lost.
On top of that, the level design was pretty generic and boring. Too bad, because swinging around in this game is actually pretty fun.
You said 30 minutes, man. It's been an hour.
Yeah, whatever. Listen, I'm thinking about fighting again.
Ah, come on, Cody. Not again.
I said, listen, Kyle.
The 16-bit era was the pinnacle of the beat-em-up genre. Final Fight was the top of the video game food chain in those days. You could also argue that Double Dragon was the superior game, but that's a matter of personal taste. However, when the 16-bit era ended, we all knew Final Fight had to make the jump to 3D. Capcom tried to revive the game on the PS2 with Final Fight Streetwise. This game was an absolute disaster. The enemies were simply too dumb and the camera couldn't handle the 3D environments. Final Fight Streetwise literally became the final fight of the series.
Kyle, take it easy.
Where's Cody?
They took him.
Nice smile.
Ever since Sega stopped making consoles, the Sonic franchise has had its ups and downs. On top of that comes the fact that Sonic and 3D graphics haven't always been good friends. In 2006, Sega tried to revive Sonic on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. The game was called Sonic the Hedgehog. Many hoped this would be the revival of the already criticized franchise. It failed miserably. Character and camera movement were frustrating and the game was super buggy. The love story between Sonic and a human girl was completely insane too. Even though this happened a decade ago, the series will always be scarred by this disaster. Atari tried to bring back the once very popular Alone in the Dark series. The series was known for its survival horror elements and slow but terrifying gameplay. However, this new Alone in the Dark was more like a cheap action movie about paranormal activity. The game was extremely buggy, and it had some very repetitive gameplay and poor physics. The cheesy dialogue didn't do the game much good either.
Just breathe.
Oh God. It was sucking the life from me.
Even though Alone in the Dark sold pretty well, it was not the reboot we're hoping for. Instead, it became the nail in the coffin for the series.
Wait! No!
The original games in the Turok series were all about protecting the barrier between Earth and the Lost Land, which was full of dinosaurs. These Nintendo 64 shooters were beloved by fans, but the 2008 reboot wasn't that well received. It played more like a Call of Duty game, and its stealth mechanics were useless. The main character became a generic soldier, which upset a lot of die-hard fans.
Hey, who's the new guy? I like his hair.
Hey, dude looks older. Your name's Turok, right? I know all about you.
Reimagining a classic idea doesn't always go well, and that's certainly true in this case. You know you're in trouble when a game about shooting dinosaurs starts to feel dull.
Great Lord, your servant beseeches you. Find her worthy.
The old Sega consoles had several awesome games, and one of them was the Golden Axe series. This co-op fantasy beat-em-up was amazing for its time. Only 2 of these games came to the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, and fans were dying for more. After the hype in the early 90s died down, things became quiet, until Sega released Golden Axe Beast Rider in 2008. This action game was supposed to revive a dead franchise by making a third-person action game out of it. This didn't work at all. The combat turned out too simple and repetitive, and even the inclusion of rideable animals couldn't save this one. In the 90s, the famous tabletop series Shadowrun was turned into a game series. These were some great action role-playing games on the consoles of that era. After that, it took more than a decade before another game tried to renew interest in the series. They turned Shadowrun into a first-person shooter, which upset a lot of fans.
Backyard.
It was touted as the first game that would allow cross-platform play between Xbox 360 and Windows PC. Gameplay and level design were very dull, and besides the name, the game had not much to do with the beloved tabletop series. Yes, this reboot was a major fail. How can you mess up one of the most iconic and successful franchises in your portfolio? Well, maybe we should ask Konami. The company decided to reintroduce the series to a modern audience by taking some realism to the game. In Bomberman Act Zero, you are a realistic robot in a dark, dystopian setting. It was as ridiculous as it sounds. Who in their right mind would want to turn Bomberman into something dark and edgy? Basically, it looked like the creators of Bomberman Act Zero didn't understand what makes a Bomberman game great.
Entering Corneria's orbit.
After many years of asking and waiting, Star Fox fans finally got a new game in the series. This game didn't live up to the hype at all. The multi-screen gameplay that split the action between the television and the gamepad was difficult to understand. On top of that, there wasn't much innovation added either.
What are you doing here? No one messes with Uncle Andross's plans!
Even the fact that you could transform your jet into a walker was copied from a Star Fox 2 prototype that never came out. Overall, Star Fox Zero was a mediocre experience that disappointed fans and newcomers alike. Did you ever pick up a bad reboot because you loved the original? Share your experiences with us in the comments, and please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button.